Hello everyone, and welcome back to the channel Airbus What's It Doing Now, and to another edition of Safety Corner. I wanted to get this safety notice out as part of the sort of Safety Corner series. It's a release by the CAA via CAA Skywise. It's something that I've subscribed to, and I get the odd communication about various safety events or safety initiatives. And they've released these safety notices, and this one I think is really important. Oh, they're all important, but this one's very relevant to us because it concerns unreliable airspeed events. And what ones that have occurred very recently. I'll come on to the detail in a minute, but it follows on very nicely from our initial video that we did at the start of at the head of this series, highlighting events and the unreliable airspeed events and the importance of extra vigilance in monitoring speed during the takeoff phase. If you haven't seen that already, I'll put a link up here, so go ahead and watch that. Put some more context to this. On this safety notice, there are three in total. I'll come on to the detail in a minute, but what we have here are three separate events, and actually between the 9th and the 11th of June 21. So I mean, that's, where are we now, the 15th, so that's last week. They all happened at Heathrow Airport, and all aircraft were subject to Pitot blockages. So we're going to go on to that, but firstly, just before I do that, I just want to cover a little bit of housekeeping and answer some of the questions that have come up on the channel about membership. There isn't going to be a membership. I don't have a subscription for the channel, though I believe we can do that, but that's not my aim. I want the videos always to be free, because if we share the knowledge, I want that to be available to everybody, because then that makes us all better professional pilots at the end of the day. I'm not interested in making something specific for certain people that want to subscribe. But I think what this has been born from is, on some of my videos on my channel are very short, and they were originally very long videos, but they're being edited, so there's like an intro, but they're not intros to a membership. They're just videos that I'm in the process of editing. Some of them may not even actually ever appear again, because they were so heavily supported by material which I can't show you. But I think some people are getting the wrong end of the stick. They're not intros into something which you only see a minute and a half of, and the rest of it is subscription. That's definitely not the case. And I think because of some of the links to Patreon and buymeacoffee.com, some people are thinking that that's the way in which they watch these videos. That's not the case. Those short videos, some of them I'm actually going to delete just to avoid any confusion, are simply videos that are being edited. Relating to Patreon and Buy Me a Coffee, what these are they're just links. If you are enjoying these presentations and these videos and these podcasts, I guess, and you're getting some value from them and you want to give something back, yes, I'd really appreciate that. That would be wonderful. And any donations will be greatly received. You can go to patreon.com Airbus What's It Doing Now, or if you want to buy a coffee, you can go to buyacoffee.com/Airbus WIDN What's It Doing Now. They won't let me have the What's It Doing Now. You have to type WIDN. I'll put the links in here, but you don't have to. They're just there. If you want to give something back, that's fantastic, but this is not a subscription service. It's completely free to everybody. Right, I think hopefully I've cleared that up, and I'm sorry if there's been any confusion. There are no courses that you have to pay for. It's all completely free. If you want to help out, greatly appreciate it. The links are at the bottom. Okay, so let's have a look at these safety notices then. The first one is the meat of it, really, and that concerns the Pitot blockage. And this looks specifically at the events themselves. It doesn't go into too much detail at the moment. These safety notices are more of awareness as to what's been highlighted, but it obviously looks at the event specifically and the actions to be taken by crew to help mitigate these events from happening again. The second and the third one, they move away from unreliable airspeed specifically, but they look at our return to flying, both from sort of an from an aircraft and airline operation standpoint, in how and ground operations, in how we can how we slowly ramp up to returning to a normal schedule of flying, as it were, and it talks about extra vigilance and how we can and some of the techniques that we might want to use when as flight crew were to help us in our job, essentially, of being as safe as we can. And the last one is about operational resilience, and this is a very long one, and I don't intend to go into much detail here. But just to highlight the areas that are specific to flight crew. But again, it does include actions to be taken by crew and awareness of the lack of recency, etc., and some of the threats associated with that. So it's quite a nice one, this, because it's a nice bundle. It looks at some sort of, the events of the unreliable airspeed, but it also looks at perhaps why it's happening, and it's all to do with aircraft being parked up for long periods of time, crews not being as recent as they'd like, and some of the things that perhaps might be being missed. So yeah, let's have a look. Now, this is going to be, I've never done a podcast before. I don't really know what a podcast is, but because there's no graphic with this, and there's no support material, I'll try and put some pictures up here, but I think you're best off with this, just sticking your earpods in, or your AirPods if you're that posh, and just listening to it on when you're walking the dog, or if you're driving somewhere on a trip, because you're not going to see anything. So you're best off just listening to this, really, because what I'm going to do ultimately is I'm just going to read. I've read these, obviously, and so I'm just picking the bones out for you, and the relevant parts. So okay, good. Let's get into it then. So and anyone can access this. I think I can't remember how I signed up for this. I'm not very good at saying no, so if something clicks up on my screen and I'm in something, I normally click yes, and then I get bombarded with stuff, and I suspect that's what's happened here, but I'm really pleased this has come my way. Also, I should also say, during the recording, my windows are open in my house. I'm upstairs in my study. We live on an estate. There's a big spine road that goes around the outside of it, and it's quite noisy, and somebody on a 125 motorcycle that thinks he's Mr. Big Nuts, when his big exhaust, is blasting up and down our road. It's driving me insane, but I've got to have the windows open because it's baking hot up here. It's got to be 50 degrees, and if I don't get the windows open, I'm going to melt. So I apologise about Mr. Big Nuts screaming up and down the outside. Hopefully it won't distract you too much. Right, so let's have a look at safety notice then. This is safety notice Sierra November 2021/014, issued on the 12th of June. And the other ones were predated. They were back in May, which is, they've just included these because they're a little bit of an add-on to add some context to things. So this one was actually on the 12th of June, a day after the last events, actually. So the safety notice contains recommendations regarding operational safety. There are recipients must ensure that this notice is copied to all members of their staff who need to take appropriate action to have an interest in the information. So this is available to everybody, basically, but certain parts of the industry are more relevant to than others. So, talking about the introduction, first of all, the CAA, the UK CAA, and the AAIB, which is the Air Accident Investigation Bureau here in the UK, have been advised of 3 separate events occurring at London Heathrow Airport between the 9th of June 21 and the 11th of June. So this safety bulletin came out the following day on the 12th of June. So this is happening on our doorstep, really. It doesn't matter where you're from in the world. This is happening. So we've got to take note of this really. So whereby aircraft have been subject of pitot blockages that resulted in airspeed discrepancies and associated crew actions. The cause of these events are the subject of ICAO Annex 13. And for those that don't know, that's the basically aircraft accidents and incidents and investigation standards, basically is how they go about it. So that's what Annex 13 is, which the UK AAIB is undertaking. However, initial feedback suggests a form of insect infestation that may have contributed to these events. So these are insects and larvae, basically, that found their way in to the pitot probe. So let me read on because I'll give too much away. So the aircraft involved were of different types, and I think that's really important as well. I mean, this is Airbus, what's it doing now? But, insects don't favour Airbus or Boeing or whatever. Bombardier, they don't have any particular flavour for your pitot. They'll get in anything. So I think it's really important that it's not specific to a certain type. And at the end of the day, a pitot probe is a protruding piece of, I don't know, alloy or something with a hole in the end of it that records ram air, statics removed from it to give dynamic pressure. Whatever aircraft it's on, it essentially does the same job, and it's obviously a very comfortable place for insects. So the aircraft involved were of different types and had been in low utilization operations, so obviously parked up for long periods of time. These have been subject to parking for periods of 3 to 7 days, so not long. So obviously they are in operation. They've been parked for up to a week and obviously then used again, and they were at various locations within the airport as well. The UK CAA advises operators, maintenance and continuing airworthiness management organisations that whilst the investigation is ongoing, these events may not be isolated to this airport, and the time of the blockages to occur is unknown. So obviously the investigation's going on, but it's not likely that it's just specific to Heathrow. I just think that they've had these 3 events within that short period of time, and it just happens to be at Heathrow. So the point to be taken away from here is going to happen anywhere. So under the next section, then, actions to be taken. Just talk about operations and maintenance and stuff. I'm not going to go into that because that doesn't really affect us hugely, but just going on to summarise then, the crew should be made aware of this potential issue, reminded of the importance of the speed checks during the takeoff roll. Well, we know this, don't we? We've got it in our SOP, and we've covered it together in the opening video when we looked at unreliable airspeed and takeoff. So the importance of the checks, speed checks during the takeoff roll, and the actions to be taken in case or in the event of a discrepancy, as well as the appropriate unreliable speed indications of their aircraft type should they discover the issue once airborne. So that's your unreliable airspeed, which we've covered as part of the procedure on one of the other videos. I'll put a link up there as well. So we've covered this in quite a lot of detail, and I'm really pleased that we have actually. So talking about these events now, it really has a little bit of gravity, doesn't it, as to why it's really important. So I'm babbling on a little bit here. So that was the safety notice. So 3 events within a couple of days, which is obviously quite alarming. And yeah, that's very specific to what we were talking about earlier on. Okay, so then moving on to the next item here, which kind of follows on really, and this is returning aircraft to service, and it talks about that event in a little bit of detail here. So this is safety notice 2020-013 and returning aircraft to service from extended parking, flight operations, licensed, unlicensed personnel. So in the introduction here, as a result of COVID-19 economic impact, a significant number of aircraft have been parked, as we know, for extended downtime, with only routine maintenance activity and with only routine maintenance activity and oversight being conducted. Industry experience shows that when returning such aircraft to operational service, there are additional hazards that should be considered by maintenance and flight crew as part of their operations. This safety notice is published to advise operators and all concerned of measures and precautions to be considered to safely return aircraft to normalised operation following COVID-19 shutdown. Then it goes on to continuing airworthiness intelligence. There's a big old paragraph here about MORs, etc. And I'm not going to go into that. So I'm just going to read these sort of relevant paragraphs here as that's relevant to us. So crew. Some of the events that have happened. So crew were unable to carry out an auto start where the 4 igniter circuit breakers were pulled with no tech log entry. So obviously, I don't know what aircraft this is, 4 igniter, who knows what that is, but the point is here is that an aircraft was obviously undergoing maintenance and some of the CBs were pulled. Obviously, that's something that you'd like to think would check before you departed, but nevertheless, that's happened. Depletion of aircraft park brake accumulator pressure. Now that's a biggie, isn't it, really? I know that's something that we check before we depart, is we check the accumulator pressure and make sure it's in the green. We do that on the Airbus. So over time, obviously, that does deplete, and we know that we can turn the yellow pump on in order to get the pressure or return the pressure to normal indications. Multiple airworthiness directives, ADs, and never exceed period overruns. So you'll know that some items that we carry have a period of which they need to be corrected, and so many flight hours or so many days. So there's obviously been some overruns. So there, really, we need to be checking our tech log and the ADDs, and potable water quantity indication systems giving false readings. Well, okay, that's never great, but yeah. So even when approved aircraft maintenance program, the AMP has been correctly followed, there are threats associated with a return to flying of parked or stored aircraft. A recent rejected takeoff due to unreliable airspeed indications was discovered to be caused by insect larvae in the pitot tube drain. Even though approved pitot probe covers, lots of P's there, had been used, and the pitot system flushed in accordance with the manufacturer's guidance, this event is the subject of an Air Accident Investigation Branch investigation, AAIB. So here we are. We've got an aircraft that's returned. They've followed all the maintenance program for it and the procedures. The correct pitot covers were used, and it went through a flush, whatever's involved in that. But still, this larvae was in the drain. So, and it led to an RTO. So even with all the correct procedures in place, this is still happening. And I think that's the big takeaway here. Right, so it goes on then, lots of other things, and then aircraft return to service consideration. The document goes on to list some engineering recommendations, which is really beyond the purpose of this sort of podcast, if you like. So we'll go over to crew now, which is on page 3, and flight crew. Yeah, okay, so here we go. So talking about flight crew here, comprehensive briefing should be received from maintenance personnel concerning aircraft status and any work carried out on the aircraft whilst parked. So, we don't really talk to engineering a lot of the time, do we? We've got the tech log for that. So it's probably worth just going over a few pages before and seeing what's happened and what's been signed off. And for me, I sometimes find engineers' handwriting, like doctors' handwriting, I don't always understand it, and I can always quite clearly understand. So I would always just call up if there's something in the tech log that either hasn't been signed off or has been, and I don't understand what it is. Some of this stuff is actually part of a work package, and you've got a work order number in there. So lots of things are covered in that. So they're not going to list everything. But if you're not sure, just ring up and ask. We need to be taking as much time as we need at the moment as part of the Fly Safe campaign. So take the time, and if there's something in the tech log you don't understand or you're not sure about, just ring up your maintenance, and I'm sure they'll be pleased to talk it through with you, because they're just as keen to make sure that you're as safe as you want to be before dispatch. Talks about additional time requirements for internal checks, greater vigilance due to the possibility of system degradation, unreported ground damage, maybe incorrect switch selection or equipment not properly stowed. That's something that might happen. Damage around the airport, perhaps if stairs have gone into an aircraft or something. But particularly when you're talking about pitot and unreliable airspeed, just make sure the areas around there are sound, without any damage. And again, if you're concerned about something, just get straight on the phone to your maintenance company, and I'm sure they'll be happy to help you out. And then lastly here, it talks about thorough briefing, including threat and error management. I think we're very good at doing that, and the focus on threats to the operation of the day, and understand that dispatch reliability is higher and maintenance problems fewer for aeroplanes in regular service, and crew should be ready for the unexpected, is what it has here in inverted commas. So be prepared for the unexpected. Expect the unexpected, I think. So a thorough briefing for threat and error management. There are more problems with aircraft that have been stored for long times than ones that are frequently in service. I think that's the takeaway here. Then it talks about ground handling. Again, I'm not going to read this because this is ground handling specific. I'm not sure that there are many takeaways for us here. And then what page am I on? 3 of 4. And then we go over to the back, and there are lots of recommended reading, which I'm not going to do. And then the last one we have, which is the safety notice 2021-012. This was back in May 21, and it talks about operational resilience, aviation industry recovery post COVID-19. So a bit of a follow on there. Some other areas are affected, but I'm just going to focus on flight operations. Again, it's a long document. This is like 7 pages, and it talks about the many operational areas airlines should look to whilst preparing for the recovery, and areas outside of flight crew responsibilities, I would say. So I will just highlight some of the areas, or the areas that are more relevant to us. But you can see this and read this whole thing yourself if you want to. But I'm going to skip, because actually it's a really long document, this. I don't want to read it all, but I'm just going to skip to the areas, actions to be taken for flight crew, and that starts actually on page 3 of 7. So this moves away a little bit, I suppose, from the unreliable airspeed, but it's by extension, when we're talking about COVID and returning, I thought it would be worth including this because it is part of the sort of safety campaign. It's part of the safety corner, and there are just a few little reminders in here about how we should prepare ourselves in returning to work. So procedures here: reinforce automation policy, encourage crew to take extra time. Be wary of accepting shortcuts in the arrival phase that could lead to rushed approaches, and reduce the workload wherever or whenever possible. Reinforce competencies and behaviours which trap errors, such as careful cross-checking, enhance vigilance during safety critical functions, monitoring, following SOPs, effective briefing, etc. That's a really important one, isn't it? I mean, we keep coming back to the SOPs, but sometimes we read these things or we do these things and without really understanding why we're doing them. Or certainly, that's probably a bit unfair. We probably do have an understanding of it, but we probably don't appreciate, that's the word, isn't it? To appreciate the full gravity of it. And it's when you see events like this that are occurring, it really stands out, doesn't it? You really sit there and think, well, I mean, that 100 knot call is my last line of defence here. If I call 100 knots and my pilot flying, it says it's still at 60, then there's a big problem here, isn't there? And that's our rejected takeoff. That's our last line of defence if we haven't picked it up before that. So what have I gone to? Effective SOPs and effective briefings. So consider lack of familiarity and the additional time required to complete routine tasks, and factor this into operational planning. Take as much time as you need, chaps. Number 4, right, doesn't have anything on the back of there. Number 5, I haven't highlighted in there. Right, number 6, we're almost there, folks. We're almost there. Bear with me. What have we been into this? I don't know. Got a good few minutes anyway. So hopefully you're having a nice long drive. So page 6 or 7. So Appendix 1, guidance for staff returning to operational activities. Proper preparation. Oh, here we go. Proper preparation prevents poor performance. I had a slightly different one of that, but I won't say it. Familiarise yourself with new or modified procedures. Review all of your emergency drills. So here we go, guys. I'm a real advocate of this. And I say this to all my trainees when they're coming in for a simulator, and again they're looking at their rosters and there's no flying. Just sit down with your QRH and just look at those QRH procedures, but also the ones that have got the memory items with them, particularly the unreliable airspeed. So you'll see in the QRH I don't know if it's the same for your airline. I don't know how these things differ. Presumably everyone's in line with Airbus, but from my experience, what happens is, or what's in the QRH is you've got your memory items and then other associated procedures. So the QRH will have items which the only memory items that are in your QRH are ones that have got procedures associated with it. So the unreliable airspeed, that's the TOGA 15, the climb 10, the climb 5, etc. And then you've got other procedures associated with it. But the other procedures to look at are in the FCOM now. So they're the ones that are purely memory only, such as your reactive wind shear. The predictive stuff now is more of a technique, so that's gone into the techniques manual, I believe. But spend some time reviewing your memory items so that if this does happen to you, it's not so much of a startle and you launch straight into the procedure, so and you're ultimately more familiar with it. So just spend some time going through those in your mind, sitting there at your kitchen table and just running through the drills. I think that pays dividends. It really does. So familiarise yourself with the new or modified procedure. Review all of your emergency drills. Give yourself more time for everything, including activities which you may think are routine. Well, they certainly were routine before. You didn't even have to think about them. Now your capacity bucket's filled up really quickly. So just take your time. Spend more time briefing as a team and acknowledge that you are more likely to make mistakes. We're human beings. We will make mistakes now more than we were before. And don't forget that other operational staff, this is a really good one, such as ground handlers, caterers, refuelers, security personnel, air traffic controllers, engineers, as well as your colleagues in operations, crewing, flight planning, going on and on, etc., may also be less current and operating with reduced capacity, and therefore errors are more likely. This is checking the load sheet, isn't it? Making sure that the holes have been security checked. Checking the passenger distribution in the cabin and make sure that it is exactly as you expect it to be. So lots of things there. We are dealing with lots of personnel outside of our aircraft that we don't have huge control over, and air traffic control, they will make mistakes in instructions. So just be vigilant, because ultimately it comes down to us at the end of the day, and we're going to get it in the neck, aren't we? So we need to be super careful with everything that we do. And all of these people and all these other services are going through exactly the same things as we are in terms of recency and getting back to work, and they are equally just as capable as we are as making mistakes. Then it goes on to be aware of your own and your colleagues' performance limitations. Skill fade is a threat to everyone who has been away from operational activity for a period of time. Biosecurity requirements are a distraction, talking through these masks, etc. Your performance may be impaired by them. It may mean that things take a bit longer. It may also cause frustration for you and other people, including passengers. Although I think passengers have pretty much got it now, haven't they, really? Well, if you don't wear your mask, unless you've got a special exemption, you're not going. So, and be aware of the potential for the threat of fatigue and reduced physical and mental endurance in you or members of your crew. It's an interesting one, that, isn't it? I mean, you've had all this time, I've practically had a year off, and then you go flying and do a 2-sector day for like 2 or 3 hours. I mean, could you possibly be fatigued? Well, yeah, definitely, because you're just not used to doing it. I think that's the reality. You've been spending the whole year in your pajamas, getting up at 10 o'clock in the morning, and now suddenly you've got a half-5 report. Right, so 707, hang on a minute, no, that's not it. Okay, so some more things here. 707, so we're almost there. In flight, monitor your own performance and those of your crew. Expect errors to be made by yourself and others. Don't assume. Assume makes an ass out of you and me. Check it. If you've made a mistake, think about the possibility that someone else may have made one at the same time. Consider the cumulative effect. Go back and double check. Your mistake may not have been picked up. I think that's the point there. Be aware that your capacity may become limited. Well, it definitely will. Keep talking. So communication. To your colleague, and tell them if you feel under pressure, if you're coming out of the green and going into the amber, especially in unfamiliar or unexpected situations. Take more time when there is doubt or distractions. Recognize when workload is increasing for you and others. Monitor your colleagues and keep working as a team. What else we got? Operate defensively. Especially whilst undertaking safety critical tasks. I think as pilots we're naturally cautious, aren't we? And we question things. I think that's really important now. It says here, don't accept shortcuts and ensure SOPs are followed. You may be lacking the awareness to monitor situations as effectively as you were able to in the past. Yeah, I think that's an important one, isn't it? Shortcuts and things are probably more likely to be offered now because the airspace is quite quiet. There he goes. You hear that? Well, that sounded quite nice, actually. That sounded like it was singing. That was lovely. That's not our 125 man. So, yeah, I think that's more likely to happen, isn't it? Really, and that's where you can be rushed. So if you just be careful of those things. I think that's the point here. I say don't accept shortcuts. It's a bit of a broad statement, really. I mean, you crew, you will know what your limitations are, but I think it's just an awareness there of potential risks. I think that's probably how I'd like to phrase that. Operate defensively, especially when undertaking safety critical tasks. Don't accept shortcuts. Well, we said about that. And ensure SOPs are followed. You may be lacking awareness to monitor situations effectively as you used to be able to. Pilots should ensure maximum appropriate use of automation. I'm a massive advocate of this. This isn't the time to practice manual handling or raw data procedures. It just isn't. Do that in the sim. Don't do it out on the line. It not only does it absorb your own capacity, but it also impairs pilot monitoring's ability to do their job as pilot monitoring. Their workload goes up by tenfold. They're like a one-armed paper hanger. So what you want is your pilot monitoring's capacity to have lots of capacity as well as your own. This is where we trap and catch errors. And make sure you stay hydrated. That's water, ladies and gentlemen. And stay hydrated and eat enough. I never have a problem with that. I eat loads. This will help maintain your individual alertness, performance, and make time for meal breaks. Well, you can't really do that in the airplane, can you? But I suppose in your areas of low vulnerability, when things are relatively quiet up in the cruise there, plan your breaks, plan your meal eating, and that makes sense, doesn't it? You're not stupid. Right, okay, I think chaps and chapettes, that is it. I hope you found this useful. It's the first kind of pure kind of chat I've done, and if I see any more of these things and I think they're relevant, we'll do it again. Or if you hated it, there's one thing I want to say. I'm talking about hating things. If you don't like what I've done, don't not like it. Don't don't do a don't like. Just talk to me. If you thought it was rubbish, tell me. If there's anything that I can improve on, and it's something you didn't like, just tell me. one or two that seem to be fairly consistent and just keep ticking not like, whatever. I'd much rather you said to me, look, I'd like to have seen this, I'd like to have seen that, and I can improve things. Don't do that. It doesn't make any sense. Just talk to me about it. I think that's the send me a message. And if you don't want to send me a message on here, you can do it on the Facebook at Airbus. What's it doing now? There's a whole Facebook page there, and all the videos are copied over. So if you don't want to put a message on here, then just do it on there, and you can send me a private message on there as well, so we can just do a one-to-one. So that's doable as well. I'm trying to get back to all of you as well, because the channel's now growing quite a bit. We're almost 2,500 subscribers, and you're really proactive, which is great to see. And there's lots of questions come up, so if it takes me a while to get back to you, just bear with me. If I'm on a block of 5 and it's a busy week, I probably don't get a chance to do it, and then I try and catch up, and then you'll probably see that I get back to you all in one day. So just bear with me while I'm doing that. Okay, so hope you've enjoyed it. Keep the plate spinning, keep safe, and I will see you again very soon. Well, thank you very much for tuning in to Airbus What's It Doing Now, and I really hope you enjoyed the briefing. If you did like it, then please remember to click the like button. It really helps the channel out quite a lot. And do remember to visit the Facebook page at Airbus What's It Doing Now. All the videos are posted there. You can leave comments, and also you can message me privately if you want to do so. If you are able to and you would like to, you can also support the channel at patreon.com/Airbus What's It Doing Now, and also at buymeacoffee.com/Airbus Whiskey India Delta November. Thanks for tuning in. See you again soon.